Hi, I'm Ron Nutter, and welcome to another edition of Tech Bites with Ron Nutter. This time we're going to talk about something not as sexy as some of the other things, but this is still continuing in the vein of Android Auto, and that's going to be how to choose the best mapping program for you. And that starts now. Okay, well, this is something that probably I should have had a little earlier in the process, but until a recent trip, I didn't put a lot of stock in it. I'll admit up front, I have used Waze for several years and really like one of its chief features is the crowdsourcing function of traffic information. So you know about something within seconds or maybe a minute or two at the outside, where mapping programs that rely on conventional sources such as the local Department of Transportation, it may take minutes or longer, if ever, some things to show up. So we're going to discuss a little bit about this time. And basically the two differences are Google Maps, which is one that probably a lot of people have started with, has some distinct feature advantages over Waze. It has the satellite imagery involved, and you can really scroll down to a pretty good level. You can't read license plates, but you're not far from it. So especially if you're in an area where the addresses aren't lining up with where Google Maps, based on information that they've got, thinks it is, this is something well worth looking at. Because at least you can see a picture recent to within, I would say, probably a few months. I checked my neighborhood recently, and I could tell that one of my next door neighbors who had gotten a new vehicle recently, I spotted his vehicle in the driveway, which told me that the images were fairly current. So that's a good option there. And it's better than nothing. And you're going to see when we get into the video that there are even some feature differences for Google Maps from within Android Auto. And the same thing is going to hold for Waze. But really, for the most part, the big thing I like is if you're primarily a Waze user and you enter an address in, Google Maps is going to know about it. So somebody really was on the ball with that one. So anyway, it's something we let's go and get started. But before we get started, I want to make sure, and I know I'm using the word started a lot, and I've got to work on repeating several words. This little ROAF charger, and this is something that really was a lifesaver on a recent trip, because even though more and more rental cars have USB ports in them, naturally, who hits the one that's not working right? And my Samsung S9 Plus was complaining about low voltage. This was the saver because it has two ports in it. It has the Smart IQ port, which will be up here at top here, so it can compensate and send a little bit more charging power down the line. And then the other one also has the ability to boost a little bit it's got different properties, and it goes on the Anchor website. So really, this or the ROAV website, this really should be in your bag of tricks, because this has the advantage for me is I can power my smartphone off this, so that when you are doing a mapping program and you're going to be using cellular in most cases, so that phone's going to need some power, you're just going to very quickly deplete the battery in the phone. And this also gives me another port so that I can sit there and power the dash cam, because anymore with some of the drivers out there, I put a dash cam in my vehicle. And if you travel a lot for business, I'd strongly encourage you to do one too, because if they say a picture's worth 1,000 words, then a video of what happened should be worth several thousand. Anyway, I digress. So this is something that really should be a part of it. There is an affiliate link in the show notes for this. If you do get it, that I do get a small commission from that. If you're wanting to look at a different airplane, I've been on Smart Talk for several years now. I've been very pleased with the service. I've never had to call in, except for I had a little problem one time in porting the service over to their SIM, and it was totally my fault for what happened. So, I just didn't have some of the information that I thought I had. But this is ways where you can travel smarter. So using the charger, having an airtime plan that's going to help, will definitely make this easier. And let's switch over to the phone, and then you can see other things to be looking at. Okay, now we're going to switch over to my Samsung S9 Plus, and show you a little bit, if you've never dealt with either one of the mapping programs, and I hadn't until just a couple of years ago, because I'd always kept with the, in air quotes, conventional GPS model, but I'm finding that's not the market it once was. If you've got a good smartphone and an airtime plan that's not going to penalize you when you get up into high data usage, which you can when you're doing navigation, and that's where you should see a link in the show notes to the Smart Talk program that I'm on, because for $45 a month, and they've now bumped up the data cap to where it was at 6 gigs, now it's 8 gigs, I think it's 10, and before they start throttling you back down, I mean, there's ways that you can mitigate that. Note to self, don't play video podcasts over mobile data, because it will chew up data in a matter of days or hours, depending on the resolution. Anyway, I digress. So when you go into Android Auto and tap on the little map icon down there on the bottom, it will go into, by default, the last mapping program that you used. Now, there are, you can switch to the other one. Now, if you notice, once we went into Waze, which is what I normally use, then a little down arrow appears. Well, you tap that. Now you can choose if you want to go to Google Maps instead. Now, they do get some traffic data, but it's not the crowdsourced traffic data like what Waze has available. And by default, if we tap on the 3 vertical dots, they'll give you what traffic information they have. And if you don't really care about that, you can turn that off, and it cleans up things a little bit. Now, where I found that Google Maps does have some good options to offer is when you turn on the satellite. That way, it gives you an overhead view. So if you're trying to find a building, and you can't, especially if they don't have a good sign out, or the building numbers aren't mapping out the way you would think of, you can sit there and at least get an idea of where to look at. Now, this is a shopping center not too far from my house, and now here's a common place that a lot of people go to, the License Bureau. So at least if you can't see some of the numbers, and let's face it, when you're driving around in some of these parking lots, some of the numbers aren't as easy as they should be. It at least gives you a good idea. Now, there are some options if you used to see, if we go into settings, and this is where the interface changes. Something that is not available when you're doing this under Android Auto is the offline maps. And we'll scroll up and down here. You're not seeing it. Let's temporarily get out of Android Auto, and we'll go back into Google Maps. Now, you see the interface change. It went from the 3 vertical dots on the right-hand side to 3 horizontal bars. And if we tap on that, now, what are we seeing here? Offline maps. So that is something where if you're trying to minimize how much cell data you use, and there's not a Wi-Fi system nearby, that's an option. So at least it helps, you keep your airtime plan down. And you can tell it Wi-Fi only. Again, these are options that do not appear when you're in Android Auto. So let's go back to Android Auto. And this is where, see, because I was changing apps back and forth, it says, okay, which one do you want to use? So we'll go back into Waze. And this is where Waze does a good job. You can squeeze down on the screen, and you can get a good idea if there's major problems. You look far out from where you are, and it's at least an option. So if traffic is really bad backing up, you can kind of get a bird's eye view how far out, and this is something that is very handy. Now, another thing, let's get back up here, and if you have common places entered, if you enter them in Waze, much to my surprise recently when I learned this, is it also will show up in Google Maps. So there is some degree of data sharing, so you don't have to enter things twice into both programs. So there is a valid use of both programs, and where I go into more in the show notes of this. There are advantages to Google Maps. It has the satellite imagery that Waze doesn't have, but Waze has more, I guess the term to use is instantaneous traffic information that Google Maps doesn't appear to have. I've not seen that correlation there. So there are advantages to both. And it's always good to have a backup because, say, for some reason, Waze is having a problem on their back end, even though they're owned by Google. I'm not sure how much they share in common with Google Maps. So if there's a problem in one, you at least have the other as an alternative. So if you don't have Google Maps on the phone, and most Android phones ship with it automatically, that's well worth making sure that it is there. And even though if you end up using Waze most times. So that's kind of a quick overview of what you're looking at. And it's like I said, never hurts to have a backup plan. Well, this is something that has been very interesting to go through. Like I said, I primarily use Waze because, say, if there's a bad accident up ahead, you may get a notification that there are police in the area before you get told about the notification about the accident. Either way, it's very handy to have, and it's always good to have more than one option. And if nothing else you can do, as someone say, you can see who's got the best lie. But I've been very happy with Waze. But there's times I may go to Google Maps, especially now that, and I'm not sure how long this has been going on, that things that you enter in Waze in terms of destinations are also available in Google Maps. So to each his own. I will be updating the email list offering that I've had. Right now it just goes to register so that I can send you information from time to time when I've got new videos out, when I've got other information I found. I am going to be offering a chapter out of my book, Making Your Home Work for You, as a thank you for those who do sign up for it. I hope to have that done here in the next week. And then you'll be able to kind of get a sampling of where the volume 1 is. I'm working on volume 2. I don't know if I'll make it by Christmas or not. But certainly if I'm not by Christmas, I would hope to be in January. And then we can, probably I'll start working on volume 3 at that point, based on information I'm already seeing that I think that's probably going to have to happen. Because there's so much coming out in the world of smart home technology, and things are always changing. So appreciate everybody's time in watching the videos that I put out. Thank you very much for everyone who's subscribed to the channel. If you haven't subscribed, and if there's some reason, if you're not seeing what you're looking for, please let me know, because I want this information to be useful to everyone as much as possible. Also, make sure you click the bell notification icons, because the more videos that you're watching from my channel, the more likely you're to get automatic notification. But that's where a nice backup plan would be. As for you sign up for an email list, I will be putting out notifications on that. So if you're not getting notifications from YouTube, then that is also a way where you can still stay in touch with what's going on. So thank you very much for your time, and we'll see you in the next video.